Hi everyone, my name is Maddie and I'm a museum educator here at the National WWII Museum. Today, our webinar is focusing on Earth Day, but also focusing on World War II. So there's a lot of ways that people on the home front during World War II were doing a lot of different initiatives that we see today as ways to help, save our planet. So we're going to be looking at a lot of the ways that back then kids, students, even grown-ups were helping with the war effort, but we're helping also with conservation and other kind of ways to really be green and celebrate Earth Day. So today is Earth Day, April 22nd, and the first Earth Day was actually celebrated in 1970. Earth Day is a big way to kind of get together with your community, even doing different things on your own, to kind of learn about ways to improve the earth, conserve, reduce, reuse, recycle, so that future generations can, keep the earth beautiful. So our program today, of course, is looking at World War II and ways that we can kind of learn lessons from World War II and carry them into our current earth and celebrate Earth Day. So we're going to look at a lot of different ways that the World War II generation did that. So to start us off, probably the biggest thing people think about when they think about World War II and even think about the Earth, they think about victory gardens. During World War II, we see with a lot of food being sent overseas to soldiers, with shortages of foods, that soon people start growing victory gardens. Victory gardens pop up all across the United States, in backyards, in community gardens, at parks, even at schools, and in some other unlikely places. To learn more about victory gardens, we're going to turn actually to one of our past student reporters and one of our museum volunteers with a short video talking about the museum's victory garden too.
Growing our own vegetables and herbs is a healthy thing to do, but it also tastes fresher and it's fun. But during the war, people grew their own gardens, which they called victory gardens, not only for fresh food, but also to make up for food shortages. Americans planted more than 20 million victory gardens across the country. These gardens produced 40% of the vegetables grown in the U.S. during the war years. In 1944 alone, the vegetables grown in victory gardens weighed more than 8 million tons. Growing food at home meant there was more food available to send to our troops overseas. It's estimated that an army of 1 million men consumed more than 1 million pounds of food every day. I'm here at the Museum Victory Garden with Ronnie Abood, who was a kid during World War II. Now I know so many servicemen and women were sent food during the war, and so I guess there was less on the grocery shelves. So how did everyone get their fair share of food?
Well, there was rationing. There was a thing called a rationing book. In addition to that, we had a victory garden, and where you grew your own fruits and vegetables in the backyard on the side of the house. And that was pretty common in the neighborhood. But with the ration book, when you went to the store to buy an item that was limited or rationed, you had to have a coupon. And you'd pay the regular item for the price as a grocer, but then you had to give the grocer a stamp out of the coupon book itself. You had to be very careful, because if you used up all your coupons, if you weren't careful over the month how you used them, you'd run out of them, and then you couldn't get any more items until the next month.
So did every American get one, even kids?
Even kids, absolutely. Why do you think there were some limitations on some things? For example, tomatoes, some of them were canned, some of them were not. Fresh tomatoes were okay, but canned goods were limited. Why do you think that was?
Well, I know that canned goods last longer, so you could actually send those overseas to all the people that were fighting.
And it was a heck of a lot of people. 16 million men put on the uniform of the United States. Hundreds of thousands of women also went into military service. So it was a lot of people that had to be fed and clothed and taken care of.
So did you start your garden before the war or during the war?
To my memory, we did not start it before the war. After the morning of December the 7th, after Pearl Harbor, I can remember my mother cutting up the grass in the backyard and digging a trench, and my dad also helping. And at the same time, she started planting seeds, and I would go out there and help her weed the garden.
Now, in my own garden, I focus more on herbs and spices, things to flavor my food. But in your garden, your goal was to feed a family.
No, positively. Well, it was an important part of the contribution to the war effort. You had to make sure that the more we could do at home, the better we could do to serve our men and women overseas.
Well, that sounds delicious.
It was a taste of victory.
I bet it was. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Ronnie, for sharing your memories of your victory garden.
So, as you heard in that video, victory gardens were very useful for the war. One thing they talked about are canned foods, and foods being shipped overseas to soldiers. Let's take tomatoes, for example. We see that this tomato and this can of tomato can be shipped overseas to our troops on the front lines, put on a ship, and crossing the Atlantic Ocean. But it's going to take some time for that ship to cross the Atlantic Ocean, and actually, by the time it gets there, that tomato, the fresh one, isn't going to be so fresh anymore. So we see a lot of the reasons there's shortages is because foods, like canned goods specifically, are being sent overseas to our troops, non-perishable foods, like canned goods like this, which leads to something else they talked to in that video. It's when the United States starts to employ rationing. So we see every American across the home front is getting ration books. Each month, they receive a ration book with a set amount of stamps to buy different kinds of foods at the grocery store. There's our can of tomatoes again in this cartoon, and you can see in it, the can of tomatoes is 18 ration points, and it also costs 13 cents, meaning that you'd pay your ration points, but you'd still have to pay money. And so, of course, with this, we know to kind of supplement their ration points, families are also going to start getting creative with creative recipes like these you see here. Heart stew, hearts weren't rationed. Kind of gross. I wouldn't eat that, but still a food to nourish your body. And then also victory hamburgers down there, replacing some soy meal for some ground beef to stretch that beef out further. Of course, if you didn't want to eat hearts, or maybe you weren't a hamburger type person, there was also growing your own food. Like that video said, victory gardens were a great way to, supplement your ration points, to feed your family, and to do so with healthy fruits and veggies. All across the United States, people were growing victory gardens. But what does that mean for Earth Day today? Well, these photos, of course, are from the 1940s, showing us students and teenagers growing food. But at home, you can also be growing food and supporting your family in that way. The way that this helps the environment, growing our own food reduces pesticide uses. It also reduces plastics being used, plastic pollution, and it helps us to reduce food waste. You're probably going to want to eat the food you grow, and you're going to be more motivated to do so because of all the hard work that you put into it. So all of these things contribute to unsustainability, pesticides, plastic, food waste. So by cutting these things down, you're cutting down on a lot of stuff. You're cutting down on carbon emissions. You're cutting down on those for transportation too, because a lot of our fruits and veggies, or things that are at the grocery store, are shipped in from other areas. So cutting down on these carbon emissions, we can do a lot for the environment. And cool thing is that home gardens also trap carbon dioxide in the soil. So that's less going into the atmosphere. So victory gardens are a great way to reduce our wastes and to also make the earth a greener place. The next thing that we're going to talk about as a way to kind of help with the environment that they did back during World War II is scrapping. As you can see on these propaganda posters here, your scrap brought it down, save your cans past the ammunition. People can really help win World War II. Salvage materials to be used to turn into something else. What we call modern day recycling. But back then, scrapping could be turned into war materials. Planes, tanks, ammunition, all of those things required metal to be made. And where was that metal going to come from? We could, I guess, make more, but if you're going to throw away your tin cans after you're done with them, or maybe have an old bicycle that you're not using anymore, those things could be melted down into other metal and then turned into planes, tanks, ships, really just about anything. So we're going to watch another video from the museum of one of our student reporters interviewing one of our volunteers, learning more about scrap metals and how they're turned into different materials for the war effort. They're going to be down in our U.S. Freedom Pavilion looking at some of our big macro artifacts and kind of knowing how much tons of metal went into them. So let's check out this video more about scrapping and see how students on the home front were helping with the war in this way.
In the National World War II Museum's U.S. Freedom Pavilion, you can get a close-up look at the types of equipment used in the war, like tanks and planes. It took a lot of materials, like metal and rubber, to make war vehicles, aircraft, ships, and ammunition too. And kids during the war helped to collect the materials that were needed to make ammunition and equipment. Here with me is Mr. Jim Bryant, who as a kid spent most of his time collecting materials that could be used in the war.
Well, there was a lot going on in the home front, and it was all in support of our effort to win the war, both in Europe and in the Pacific. One of the things that the entire country did was to gather scrap, metal, tin, and bring it and give it to the government, and they would then take that and build wings of some of these airplanes you see here, or some of the tanks, a lot of metal there. So to understand, it was an effort not only from the men that were in the uniform, both in Europe and in the Pacific, but every family back home.
So I've heard you say scrapping a few times. What exactly does that mean?
Scrapping means gathering all kinds of different things and turning them into things that could be used in the war effort.
So scrapping is a lot like what we call recycling.
A little bit, but it's using all the things that you find and redoing things to make something like this gas mask. One tire, 12 gas masks.
What about this big tank? How much metal would be used for that?
18 tons of steel to put that thing together.
18 tons, that is a lot of metal.
So scrapping, as we heard, it's a big way to help with the war effort. Modern day recycling can still be done to help save the planet. So Earth Day, a good time to think about this. All of the waste that we have, you know, newspapers, maybe your old clothes you don't fit in, or even just the can left over from when you had soup or something like that at home. Instead of throwing it in the trash, maybe there's ways you could recycle these things. You can take that can and recycle it through a recycling program in your community, or even turn it into something else entirely, which is actually what we're going to learn about next. Gina, one of our STEM educators, is actually going to go through one of our activities that goes with our Get in the Scrap program. Our Get in the Scrap program teaches students how the World War II generation scrapped or did other initiatives for the environment and how it can be applied to our day today. Gina is going to teach us how to make a tin can victory garden. And it's going to be pretty cool. I might need to make one as well.
Hi, my name's Gina and I'm a STEM educator here at the National World War II Museum. That means that I get to find connections between science and history every day. A great day to find those connections is Earth Day. So for Earth Day, you can think about what you can do to help our planet and help take care of the planet for years to come. During World War II, kids got involved in helping their communities and in helping the Earth by getting involved in scrap drives and starting victory gardens of their own. So today we're going to start on a little activity that involves a tin can that we repurpose into a miniature victory garden that helps us learn how to start gardens and how to work with plants and help plants grow. So our tin can here actually is a recycled tin can that we poked some holes into. You're going to want to get the help of a grown-up to poke some drainage holes in the bottom of your can. And depending on the size of your can, you're going to want about 3 to 6 drainage holes. So to get things started, we're simply going to add some soil to our can. This time we're using another can, but you can use something else to scoop that soil. And we're going to fill it to about halfway. So once you have it filled about halfway, you can add your seed. We're going to use a cilantro seed today. So these are delicious for cooking. And our small little seed is in our soil, and now we're just going to cover it with a little bit more. So at the end, your can should be about 3/4 of the way full. You want to make sure that there's a little bit of space at the top. You don't want to pat it down too much, so you want to leave a little bit of loose soil there, because for our last step, we're going to add some water on top. And this is going to help hydrate your seed, because seeds, which grow into plants, need water to grow. So that water is going to help hydrate our seed, and eventually it's going to germinate and turn into a plant. And through this, you can learn how to start a garden of your own. So this is what we call kind of a starter garden or a training garden. So you can learn how plants grow, what plants need, and how you can follow the needs of your plant. So our cilantro plant can teach us a lot about how herbs grow and how plants that we use for eating and for crops grow, and the type of sunlight that they need. And then from there, you can expand to an outdoor victory garden. So you might add one into the soil near your house or at your school. During World War II, some folks use planter boxes, so there are a lot of options. But once you're ready, you can do some research with a grown-up to find out the best plants for your community. Another amazing thing about gardening is that while you can, of course, grow food for people, you can also grow food for things like insects. Pollinators, as in bees and butterflies and moths, are awesome for our environment and for the earth. So if we build pollinator gardens that have lots of good flowers for them, we can help keep them happy, and they can help keep our other plants happy. So there are a lot of ways that you can get involved in making a garden and in helping your community through gardening. So another way to get involved in your community and in environmental conservation, which is a big fancy word for saving the earth, is Get in the Scrap. So Get in the Scrap is a service learning project through the National WWII Museum that incorporates service learning, which means doing things for the community, with learning about history. So you learn about what kids did during World War II to help with the war effort, and really to support their country and their communities during the war. But then you can also learn how that might work today and how you can help your community. There are lots of great activities in there and lots of great things to learn about what kids were doing during World War II.
Wow, that activity was so cool. I had to do it myself. But I planted green onions instead of cilantro because I'm not a very big fan of cilantro. But those were some really cool ways that we can get involved in our communities today. Growing victory gardens, recycling/scrapping, or even combining them together to limit our waste. There's a whole lot of lessons we can learn from the World War II generation on how to reduce, reuse, recycle, how to conserve materials that can be applied now to better our communities. So I recommend that you look more into Get in the Scrap. There's a bunch more activities like that, and you can find them by visiting our website at the National WWII Museum.org and search Get in the Scrap. So thank you all so much for joining us today, for learning more about World War II, but also learning ways that you can help in your community today. So thank you everyone, and I hope that you have a great rest of your Earth Day.